Lindsey Graham's my friend and my colleague. We see things differently, and we still get along, which I think is the nature of good work in Congress, at least I hope it is. I would say to him, it is interesting to me that you cannot put a nominee for the Supreme Court of the United States at that table, and they all sit there, without that person expecting a question as to whether or not they're going to be influenced by foreign laws. Will you look at laws in other countries, or are you going to stick with America? And the answer they're waiting for is, I stick with America. And now we have references to Europe as the standard bearer in terms of where America should go for its future. Secondly, if we're called an outlier in that headline, guilty as charged. America has always been an outlier. A written constitution for over 200 years, a Bill of Rights that people can depend on. We are outliers. No one in Europe can make the same claim. So I would just start with the premise, I love Europe, I love the Europeans, but we're Americans. And when it comes to the decisions as basic as the rights of our individual citizens and freedoms, I think we've got a pretty good starting point with the Constitution and Bill of Rights. I want to ask you, Dr. Lopez, there have been references made here to whether or not your profession and what you've done with your life for the last 10 years is an outlier itself, that in fact that you're not doing what is mainstream medicine in America. How do you respond to that?
That is not true. The type of care that I provide, gender-affirming care, is the mainstream standard of care, best practice, recommended by all the legitimate medical societies in the United States and across the world. And as I said in my opening statement, we have a clinical experience of more than 20 years and a robust body of evidence that supports this treatment as life-saving, decreasing depression and anxiety. There are no other studies that support any other treatment. So this is the mainstream treatment.
And accepted by the American Medical Association and the American Academy of Pediatrics as well?
Correct.
Is there any major professional medical organization in the United States of America that opposes this form of care?
No.
That speaks for itself. We're talking about science and medicine versus a political spin on the issue. I want to say I'm old enough to remember the debate on the Equal Rights Amendment 50 years ago. The fears, if we pass the Equal Rights Amendment, women will be serving in combat. You know what? Women are serving in combat because they want to serve in combat, and we need them. If we pass the Equal Rights Amendment, we're going to have men and women sharing the same bathrooms. Have you been to restaurants with all-gender bathrooms? I've seen them quite frequently in Chicago, and I'm sure you've seen them too. When I listen to Ms. Gaines, I think there is a fundamental call for justice in your statement. I understand it. We've got to be able to work that out as a nation, and not at the expense of Haley Walker and her future. There has to be a middle ground here that is fair to both. As far as I'm concerned, that's our job on this side of the table to deal with that moving forward. Dr. Lopez, you said, and I want to make sure it's on the record clearly, that accepted medical practice in this field does not provide for surgery for youth. Is that correct?
Their genital surgery is not recommended for minors. That is the standard of care.
And in terms of hormone therapy, it is not administered until after puberty?
That is recommended in adolescence.
And if you went forward with any surgery at any point, or even medications that we're talking, has it been your practice to involve the parents of the young person involved?
That is the standard of care. Parents, all legal guardians of parents have to consent to the treatment. That's part of the medical decision-making, is to involve the parents and discuss the risk and benefits like with any type of medical treatment. And at the end of the day, it is the parents that consent to the treatment.
Ms. Robinson, you've noted the resurgence, if you will, of anti-LGBTQ legislation across the country. A lot of it's focused on the transgender issue, but not exclusively when we look at the body of legislation. What else is coming up in the state legislature that concerns you?
I mean, we're concerned about bathroom bills reemerging, not moving forward, explicit non-discrimination for protections for the communities, and so much more. And for me, what's even more concerning is the violent rhetoric that surrounds every introduction of a bill. I mean, it's contributing to the fact that 1 in 5 of every hate crime is now motivated by anti-LGBTQ plus bias. This is an urgent problem facing our community and creating fear and isolation, even when the bills aren't passed into law.
Thank you.